First, I'm gonna apologize for the fact that J2EE is no longer the official name since 2006. So we're gonna discuss PHP, JavaScript, and Java Enterprise Edition, and I'm gonna invite on stage Max and Cezar. Which,
Hey everyone.
So we're gonna take questions from you during this panel. If no questions are available, I'll start with a few. So I think one of the most interesting questions is how do you choose the right technology for your project? How do you, if you can start?
I'll start with that. Hi everyone.
Yeah.
So I think one of the most overlooked processes in the stage of the project management is actually choosing the technology to be used in the project. That may impact on a large scale your costs, your service, your delivery, and of course your inner happiness, after all. Because when you will have to change your code, believe me, you'll have nightmares if you didn't do it right for the first time. But don't be scared. Don't be scared. You can switch teams while you're in development. Don't be afraid to do it. The major factors when choosing the right technologies, when you think about it, should be the platform, the target, what you're aiming for. Will you go Windows only? Will you go Unix systems, Mac, mobile? This will depend on what you choose and will depend on your costs. Another major factor in choosing the right technology would be the talent pool you have. Because it doesn't matter if it is the best, the greatest technology, if you don't have people that can do that. There's no point in it. Another one would be the knowledge. Of course, the first time when you start a new project, you'll go to your most known programming language. You'll start with that, and you'll build up. But you still have to consider what will happen at one point where you will have to switch, to scale, to integrate with other systems. In this case, all the free languages behave very well. They can build out, they can scale without any issues. Another thing is there's actually no bad language. There's not a real comparison between the three of them. There's no bad language. There's only developers that suck. Yeah. So if you do it right the first time, you'll be fine. And that's my advice to you. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any questions from the audience? If not, okay.
Yes, please.
Hello. You mentioned that it's, of course, a matter of costs. What is the difference of cost between the three of them?
Well, between the three of them, it's actually the cost consists in the people you have to pay for it. If you're only the sole developer, it doesn't matter for you that much because you'll have to pay for licenses, for the infrastructure, the servers. It depends.
So between them, I believe the most expensive is Java?
Yeah, it is. You're right. The licenses and the server, the infrastructure is the most expensive for the Java.
PHP is the most less expensive. I mean, the least expensive.
I think it would be JavaScript, the less expensive. Yeah, you just need a browser and you can host it anywhere, actually.
How about the speed?
The performance of the programming language that you choose is important, but you know that no two projects, you can build the same projects with two different languages, and you can have different benchmarks for them. Of course, Java EE is performing better than PHP in all the benchmarks, but lately we've seen that JavaScript is getting better and better in that, as in performance.
So right now, could you say if there is a winner between the three of them in terms of speed and...
Yeah, well, actually, we're not talking about the best language.
No, I'm strictly referring to the speed. If I want
for the performance, it would depend on the project. But yes, I think JavaScript would win in that case.
JavaScript?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Any more questions? Okay, so I have another question for you. I think one of the obvious things from the three of them, first the question, I'm gonna ask Cezar the question, would be after you choose, how can you say which one is better for your project? Is there any of the three has an advantage over the other two in this case? So I think JavaScript is an obvious one because it's also on the front end. And it's also on the back end of Node, if you can say more about them.
Hello, DevTalks. This isn't really a fair fight because we're talking about three languages, and this is not the point, actually. We are discussing what technologies should we use when we want to build an app. So the main reason of this panel is regarding the usability, the functionality, and why would you choose a language? Well, if let's say we choose JavaScript, it will be a language that will cover most cases. Let's say you want to develop an application that can be also implemented on the mobile side, on a tablet, or on a desktop PC. Yeah, so
tell us a bit about the client side. I think one of the main reasons that JavaScript might win is that you can take all the back-end processing from the servers and move it to the client. And I think that's also...
I think starting 2009, there was a big bang happened regarding the UI, the user interfaces. I think the whole computational side of an application moved to the client side, and the backend servers only states some sort of APIs, and this tells me that we don't have to need very strong servers for this side. We can calibrate the functionality and the performance by moving the whole computational side of the application to the client. And this means that we can clear the servers and we can have a very lightweight application that the client can use it.
Okay, and on the backend side, probably we'll have to build a RESTful API, which is probably
yes, exactly. And my thought on this is that the whole backend side now just transforms to an API, which is basically just using some sort of RESTful patterns and nothing else. I mean, applications nowadays are responsive. They can adapt to every device, and that's the whole point. And the fact that we're comparing PHP versus JavaScript, that misses a T there, in the Java to Enterprise, is not really about why should we choose a language. Is what we can do with it. So let's say in 2005 or 6, when I first wrote my application, a web application, I used PHP and I was like, okay, it's just a sort of ping-pong game between the client and the backend side. And the user had to bring the whole time information from the backend by just requesting and responding to the server. Nowadays, using frontend such as AngularJS frameworks, React, Ember.js, you can just bring the whole application once, and then you can only save information time to time to the backend when it is needed. So my point on this, I think, even if it isn't a fair fight between those three languages or whatever other languages we're using, we just need to think that what we can take in mind when we're building an application. So my view on this is that JavaScript can cover both sides, the front end and the back end, and it is a fair, easy language to learn. You can use any framework for the front end and Node.js on the back end. So this can cover every issues that you will have with the languages. Thank you.
Okay.
I would like to add something to what Cezar said. Indeed, JavaScript can handle both of them and can do it pretty well. But most of you probably work in corporations where you have strict security policies. And I don't know if anyone will allow you to use JavaScript as a backend. So probably you'll need a compiled language for that. Yeah. That's all.
Okay, we have a question there.
Hi guys. On regards to scaling the apps, like in the future, which is easier to do on like code reuse and maintaining the code? Which is easier to maintain over in time of the three?
Okay, thank you for the question. As maintainability goes, I think PHP will go pretty well there because with the latest update for the PHP 7 that came last year, I think, in December, a lot of structure of the code changed. And if you build a good foundation for the code, the maintainability across the years will go. Take, for example, everyone will have to at some point to update from PHP 5 to PHP 7. It will become legacy. And from what I've seen, from what I've read, it's actually an easy task to update to the PHP 7 because all the structs, all the code is in place. And if you wrote it correctly from the beginning, you won't have any problems with that. And I think J2E is the least scalable of them all.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think the question was also referring to large code bases, and I think Java has the upper hand on large code bases.
Yeah, on that being a compiled language, yeah, it handles better transactions than PHP. That's definitely.
And also the fact that it's statically typed and not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
J2E is statically typed. That's right.
Okay. Do we have any more questions? I have a question regarding security. I think both the open source variants, PHP and JavaScript, have more than a couple of problems regarding security. For example, the left pad incident that was all over the internet a couple of weeks ago. Can you tell us a bit more about security and?
Well, about that. It happened actually for JavaScript, for the npm project, where they had one of the packages had a backdoor, sort of say. And when you installed it, it would crash everything in your code base. It would crash your server. And from that point of view, JavaScript still lacks some security. And I think it will pass some time before big corporations on a large scale will adopt Node.js, for example, as a server-side coding language. There's been a recent update for Node.js that handles specifically these security flows in the JavaScript. So yeah, we'll see what happens in the future, but probably take some while before we get that.
Let me to answer your question.
Okay.
From my point of view, I think PHP and JavaScript is all about open source, and of course this comes with a lot of security breaches. And Max was telling about an incident that happened at least 2 months ago or something like that, and the whole application that we're using, that module, crashed because some bug appeared there. So the final thought of this is that PHP and JavaScript is all about open source, and the security security leaks might appear, and Java should always be a better solution regarding the security. Thank you.
So, if do we have any questions from the audience? Okay, we have a question here. You can say it and I can repeat it. Oh, okay. Here comes the microphone.
You can shout it.
Hello. Where would you actually use PHP?
Where? Okay. You definitely want to answer?
Yes. Well, PHP is now alive with Laravel. That's my answer, because it comes up with a very good structure, with very good design patterns, and it brings the PHP alive because it applies
some design patterns and maybe structure.
Yes, exactly.
But how you put it earlier?
Sorry, I would like to answer your question too. Regarding PHP, you asked where would you use it. Let's not forget that PHP is the most used programming language today. WordPress, Drupal, Facebook still use it. And with the latest update, they're actually going towards the actual meaning of the object-oriented programming. And I think PHP will not die soon. Yeah, from my point of view, from when I'm standing, it's still there and it's still alive. Thank you. Any other
Okay.
questions?
How much time do we have? It's a, oh, okay, okay. I have a question regarding when you start now as a programmer, what would be the best language to choose from PHP, JavaScript? Can we talk a bit about marketplaces? For example, PHP has a very large marketplace that's thankfully to WordPress. You can build themes, plugins, stuff like that. On JavaScript, there are a lot of open source projects. On GitHub, 70% I think of them are JavaScript MIT projects. And on Java, the enterprise world, I think it's a bit harder to reach. Can you?
Yeah, that's
say
a
a
tough
bit?
one actually. Yeah. Well, if you're a beginner and you want to start somewhere, I always suggest to go with HTML and CSS. That has to be your basics for anyone. You can't go forward if you don't know that. And from the three languages written here, I think JavaScript is a good starting point. It is gaining a lot of traction lately and will become more and more popular with all the libraries that are coming out. PHP is still there. A lot of websites still use WordPress, like I said before. A lot of developers still use WordPress to create modules. PHP has probably the best community and the largest one. So you always have something new to learn. It's pretty easy to learn, actually. As for J2E, it has its popularity indeed, but I find it harder to learn for a beginner, from a beginner point of view. And I would not suggest it as your first language to dive straight into J2E.
Yes, same question, another answer. Well, I'm going to answer a question by telling how I started. I started not using these three languages. I started using HTML and CSS just to see how you can lay out your application. And starting from that point, I felt the need to use a backend side in order to store my data, my application, my logic, my everything from that application. So I think if a new joiner could start developing web application, it should start with some basic HTML and CSS. And following that, he can go on the backend side. And I think he can start with the PHP because it's a very C-like language, a C++ language. And it is very easy to learn. It has a learning curve of, I don't know, exponential. And yeah, that's my answer about how
Okay.
How would you start?
Okay, do
Thank
we
you.
have any questions so far?
Don't be shy.
Okay. Okay, no beginners here. So I have another question regarding PHP. Everyone is, I think, still making fun of PHP being the worst kid from the playing ground. How do you translate this to the fact that JavaScript had momentum in the last period of time, and a lot of junior programmers and not so experienced programmers started writing code and NPM modules, and there isn't yet a code standard for everything, and even a lot of NPM modules are relying on other modules that are basically a one-line code, is array, is null, or something like that. How does the fact that it lacks code standard influences the community and the language itself?
Well, the answer here is open source. Open source brings a lot to JavaScript because there are a lot of teams that are developing applications and they are just throwing them like open source, and a lot of developers get to know those modules and just start using them because they have a good documentation, they have good, I don't know, documentation that should say it.
Yeah, but sometimes they're relying too much on this NPM
Yeah,
modules,
regarding
like
the
one-liners.
regarding the modularity of the NPM modules, let's say like that, it's very debatable because you can extract everything that you have in your application based on a module, and let's say how you said it, even a function of isArray could be in a module, that separates the whole application on a certain layer stuff, because it is good, but personally I don't think it is good, because it brings you a lot of dependencies, and the application might crash for just one module, for one line. If that line crashes, the whole project goes down, more or less.
And we can see the case here with the left pad
Exactly, in the case with the
situation.
left pad that happened 2 months ago or something like that. Yeah, and also this happens in PHP. Now with the Composer, there are lots of modules open sourced, and the same thing applies here too. You build your application, build it with modules, but don't overdo it. Just try to encapsulate your application within one module and use only third-party modules to do it. Thank you.
Yeah, I would like also to add something. Regarding PHP and JavaScript being non-compiled languages, there's an easy way to mess up a whole project. So it depends a lot on how the code is written from the beginning, from the foundation. If you can handle the errors correctly, in PHP 7 actually they improved the error handling. From this point of view, J2E actually comes forward, being a compiled language, being a much more strict language, where you can't do that many errors like you do in PHP and JavaScript. They allow you that many errors. And it could be too late before you find them. And from there is where the headaches begin. Yeah.
So do you think a static language would be better, or using, for example, TypeScript for JavaScript?
As our topic says, I think it depends on the job, what you're doing it for. Because as I said, for the corporations, you'll need a compiled language, because you'll need security, strict policies. You'll have a strict coding guideline, and you'll have to impose that into the compiler. For the PHP and JavaScript, if you don't have everything aligned, and if someone makes a mistake, you might find it very hard later to come back to fix it.
Yeah, and I think this also influences the number of programmers you have in a team. And I think what do you think of the fact that you have, for example, a company that has 100 programmers? Which of the languages, or you have a project, how would the workflow be for those programmers in each of the languages?
Well, from the beginning, we have to set up the guidelines for the coding standards, for error handling, and for everything. The type of the programming language that you'll choose, you won't choose anything. Probably your project manager or solution architect will choose for you. And he will choose based on what the team can do. How good are they at what they're doing? What is the time to production? That's everything that depends for him. What is the time to production? How fast can you do it? What is the code quality gonna be? And there where the compiled languages come forward from my point of view.
Okay. If there are questions from the audience, please. Oh, okay,
Yep.
I'll stop asking if there are questions. If I see any raised hands, I'll stop the conversation.
Regarding JavaScript, you can always use TypeScript for JavaScript and make it more error-friendly, so exception-friendly.
Okay, I get your question. Also for PHP and for JavaScript, you can probably do everything that other languages do, but you'll need libraries. You depend on modules, libraries, on external factors that don't depend on you. You don't have it in the compiler, the power of the compiler.
Yes, but TypeScript, for example, mimes C# like compiling time, and is generated behind the scenes JavaScript code.
I'm sorry, I didn't get your question.
TypeScript,
Yeah.
it's like writing C#.
Yeah.
Compiling in the IDE, it raises the errors, compile time errors, even if it's not really compiling.
So you're actually saying that at runtime you can handle the errors.
No. Yes. They are jumping compile time.
Yeah, they're actually before at runtime.
No.
Yeah, you can do that, but it's not a real compiler, that one. You're actually looking for the code for the TypeScript. You're looking for the code for errors. It's not a compiled language. It will not run. It will only check for errors in your code, syntax errors and logic errors, I think. It will not check for the compiled part of the code, like a compiled language does it.
Yes, you have a good point. It's a bit better.
Yeah.
No.
I think definitely TypeScript helps on when you have larger code
Yeah.
bases and you want to have statically typed and better. So if you're a big corporation, you'll definitely go to Java. If you're a small one and you don't have the budget to buy the enterprise version of Java and you have the open source variants and maybe not much money on the infrastructure, from a perspective point of view, what would you choose between them? Between, for example, PHP and JavaScript from a
For what?
for a performance
From performance point of view.
I'm referring here at the fact that JavaScript can handle more concurrent requests than PHP, because PHP assigns
JavaScript,
megabytes
I
of
think
RAM for each.
that's the reason it gained so much traction lately, because of the concurrency for the JavaScript. And because everything loads in an instance and stays there, unlike PHP where every time it loads everything. So it's a little bit slower, actually a lot slower. But there comes the Java Enterprise, where it's much better in performance from the benchmarks regarding PHP. And in JavaScript, I think you can go with JavaScript for small projects. I don't think we're still there yet, where you can build large-scale applications for corporations in JavaScript, for the main reason that I said before, the security and the scalability.
Well, I have a couple of counterexamples. Walmart, that also built Happy, is using Node.js and JavaScript,
Yes,
and also
so
Netflix.
Some
which
companies
Netflix
are
is
moving
quite
towards
big.
JavaScript. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that's a small step, and there's still a long way to come before we're there.
Same question, different answer, I think. Okay, I personally would choose JavaScript in the Java. Java for the backend, JavaScript for the UI. And this can totally bring your application to a lot of new horizons, because you can build your API in Java, which is very scalable, which is very fast, which is very whatever, it's Java. So JavaScript will allow you to build your user interfaces regardless of the device you are using it. So PHP nowadays is there, but I wouldn't not choose it. Thank you.
Okay.
Questions? No one?
I have another question regarding the fact that startups recently have started a lot of projects in which they use a lot real-time communications, real-time updates, and things like this. How do the free languages fit into the real-time world of today?
Yeah, definitely JavaScript comes first from that point of view, for the power of being very responsive. You don't have to make so many requests. You actually get the response immediately as the change happens. And from there, you can do anything with the code for the rest. As where in the other two languages, you have to keep still make requests over and over again to the server. So yeah, JavaScript definitely comes first for that type of things, for the real-time updates.
Same question, different answer. JavaScript, JavaScript, and JavaScript.
Okay.
We have a winner, okay.
We have a winner, JavaScript. Any questions? If not, how do you see this world in the web world in 5 years or 10 years or?
In 5 years.
How
No.
do you see the landscape shaped
Yeah.
by these technologies? Or will any other technology come into the picture which will be faster, better, stronger?
Definitely we have something new. Every year we have something new. I think JavaScript will keep its momentum, will keep growing. New libraries will be added, more powerful, more adequate for any kind of job. As for PHP, we just had an update, which is great. It's up there. And for J2E, it's kind of dead for now, as in doesn't exist anymore. We're talking about Java Enterprise now. And it's still used on a large scale for corporations, for banks, for...
Why do you say that Java Enterprise is dead?
No, I said J2E is dead.
Oh, okay. I think we should change the subject
we
from
should just carry
J2E
from
to
there.
Java Enterprise. And
Yeah,
well,
Java Enterprise is
forget
still used on a large scale in corporations, in banks, in where, as I said, you need security, you need a good language, a mature language. I think that's the most important thing. It has to be a mature language. You must have a good support for it. You must have a great community. And yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Same question, different answer. As I said it in the beginning, in 5 to 10 years, I see these technologies evolve in a more client-based way, which means that the backend, regardless of the language you are using, will be just an API that stores data and nothing else. And the client will just handle the whole application, usability, functionality, and whatever. So my main view from 5 to 10 years will be that applications will sort of move to the client side, and this is regarding the fact that there are more and more users coming to the internet, and we will need much bigger servers for these users to come and use our applications, and we can split this whole performance thing to the client side, and everything I think will be fine. Thank you. Questions?
Okay, so JavaScript has its advantages over the other two, and also the other two over the other two. And from my point of view, we have like code structure wise. We have Java up here. Yeah, it's strongly typed. It's very powerful from that point of view. Then my point of view, it's PHP is right underneath, because PHP just cloned the object-oriented part from Java. And then we have JavaScript. ECMA script, the last one, 6, has some new functionalities in that object-oriented part, but do you think it's up to date with at least PHP? And I have another question. From my point of view is that, okay, front-end JavaScript, it's no contest over there, but the API could be anything, and I think PHP is also a very good option, if not Go or anything else.
Regarding the first question, I don't think JavaScript is the answer, but TypeScript it is, because it offers you the type language, and it offers you an OOP pattern. So yeah, I see direction in that, and I think it somehow surpasses the PHP. And the second question was APIs. Yeah, exactly. The backend it doesn't need to be a certain language. It depends. Yep.
Hi, hello.
Hi.
I see that you said that in 10 years this will evolve. You think that these languages, technologies will be available in 10 years anymore? Based on the fast return of the technology, the steps in which are getting every cycle, it's accelerating. You think that we will still use these technologies?
Yes. I'm truthfully thinking that we were still using these technologies because think of it. Right now, I think most of the web is built on WordPress platforms, which is PHP. So there are a lot of applications that are still using this language, and I'm guessing that those applications are not going to die and just be revived in another language. I think they will still use the same technologies. That's regarding the PHP language. The JavaScript might move to TypeScript and TypeScript only. And Java, I think, yes, definitely, it will still be.
The point is that the interaction, I think, will be totally different. What was the web and what is the web now, I don't think that will exist in 10 years anymore.
I think we can also talk a bit here of the fact that languages evolve. For example, with JavaScript, Facebook released React Native, and you can go into the mobile world now, which is the future of everything, even though the web might. So, Max, if you can tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I'd like to answer that question. Regarding the first one, where we'll be in 10 years, if we will have the same technologies, yes, we will, because we still need to write code for them, and we'll need something to write it on, how to write it. Why it will still exist? Because I don't think there will ever be a language that will be the god of languages. We can't have that. You can choose any language you want. You'll always make a compromise on anything. You'll always compromise on something. It's independent of the language you choose. So yeah, I'm definitely sure that in 10 years we still have these technologies evolved in maybe different structures, different codes, different patterns for sure, but not extinct. Thank you.
Okay, Cezar, do you have any opinions on this? I'm also referring, I have a question here. We have the title, Choosing the Right Technology for the Right Job, and it's the free most mainstream one, but we haven't discussed at all about any of the others. Are other languages more fit for other jobs? And I'm referring here maybe Python, data science, big data, Ruby, Haskell. Any opinions of that?
Yes, good question. As we said earlier, it's not really about the language, it's what the language can offer you. So Ruby, for example, using with the framework Rails, can be a perfect choice for your application, for your API, basically. So, yeah, the answer is yes. There are other languages that are far more suitable than, let's say, PHP is now. So Ruby, for example, is a good choice. I would choose Ruby instead of PHP, actually.
Max,
Thank
do
you.
you have any opinions on that?
Yeah,
this guy?
I would like to contradict my colleague. Thank you. No, Ruby on Rails is a great language, don't get me wrong. But when it comes to the low-level computing, it's too much magic. Yeah, it's just write a line of code, open file, it runs through 40 libraries and it does everything for you. There where comes languages like PHP and J2E, where you actually have to go to deep lower, and you have access and you have control over your code. And Ruby on Rails is great for small projects, I think, for websites, but I don't think it's up there with PHP. Thanks.
Okay, you are telling about the lower level. So one of the directions in the transition to 2020 is the Internet of Things. Do you have any of this? Do you have any opinion that any of these technologies can power the Internet of Things?
Yeah, the JavaScript, I think, is now starting to move to the embedded devices also. So we might see that in the future, JavaScript in the embedded devices. As for the other two languages, J2E, Java-E is still very popular and it will not go down anytime soon. So for the Internet of Things point of view, I think JavaScript will be seen a lot more in the embedded devices at least.
Will PHP have any chance on the Internet of Things?
Well, it's not that
probably
easy.
not.
You can't actually put it on devices. You'll need a web server, you'll need a different infrastructure for the PHP.
Okay,
Yeah, that's where the difference will come probably.
awesome, thank you. Do we have any more questions from the audience?
Nope.
If not, I think this is our session for today.
Thank you very
So-
much, everyone.
So yeah, thank you very much, and see you next time.